to open up and to want to become entrepreneurs. And even in the educational system, we don't train them to take an entrepreneurial view of life.
Yeah.
For example, our students that do things like auto mechanics don't learn business and how to, okay, I'm a mechanic now, but I want to open my own business.
Right.
And you know, besides that, even with things like tourism, we don't encourage people to develop tourism products that we can sell.
You know, Tony, there's a wonderful commercial running in North America now, and just to paraphrase, the basic idea is, you know, between an idea and the success of the idea is how, you know. And I bring the question back to you. The points that have been said here already, it's so clear, it makes so much sense. Instead of how, I'd like to propose to you the question, why? I mean, why aren't we doing it? I mean, it's obvious it's not working. It's obvious people are hurting. What's the problem?
But look, a journey of...
Why aren't we doing what we need to do?
Well, because we have no plan. That's the fact of the matter. I mean, look, when you fly a plane, right, you have to file a flight plan to your destination. You have to make provision for alternate landing point in the event that there's bad weather, right? We don't have a plan for this country. That's the fact of the matter, right? Look, all of the ideas that the colleagues talked about earlier requires funding, right? But look, ZNS gets 10+ million a year. Water and sewage get a good chunk. Bahamas gets a good chunk. When you add all of the monies that were given to these government corporations over the last 5 years, the future generation will have to pay in the order of about $500 million, right? Now, had we privatized these entities, and instead of those funds that the government now spend subsidizing, you put that into a fund that actually fund these ideas that young people have. Because, you know, I could have the best idea. If I don't have any resources or access to capital, it's going to die on a limb.
Gotcha.
And the banks today are not encouraged to take risks. They're not encouraged to take risks. National insurance, the largest pool of funds that we have in this country, should be used for national development. Unfortunately, the mandate is such that 90+%, 95, 98% of the assets have to be invested in government bonds or buildings. So for instance, there's no equity risk capital out there that's going to young entrepreneurs to take risks.
But again, Tony, see, I still come back to it. Okay, so the why is we have no plan. So why don't we have a plan?
Well, I mean, look, but I think Mr. Rigby said it earlier, right? That, you know, both political parties has failed. And that's the reality. We're not here to talk about politics. We're here to talk about this country, right? And unless you have some politicians, and the problem is, right, with the greatest respect, is most politicians, when they get into politics, it's a career for them. You know, I submit, you know what you should do? You don't get paid to get into politics. When you go to politics, you get $1 a year, right? So the people who go in there, they don't need to cut deals to make things happen.
Hold on. You did say $1 a year.
Yes.
And you are serious.
Absolutely.
Well, may I, Mr. Wisdom? may I, with all due respect, I disagree with Mr. Ferguson on that point, and I'll tell you why. Because if we take that tack, it means that we are opening up politics to the select few. And you would have to therefore be very wealthy in order to be a politician in this country. And we cannot allow our country to once again return to an oligarchy. Politics should be everyone, whether you're from Bain and Grantstown, whether you're from Adelaide, Fox Hill, you should feel as though it is possible for you, if you love this country enough, to be able to play a pivotal role in its development. And if, by chance, you have not been blessed into birth in a household that is of money, you are not locked from the doors of power. So I respect that idea, but I must say I think we need to do more to cut the money out of politics.
I'll rephrase it then. We probably seriously need to consider the form of governance where we change it more to a republic, so that, for instance, the cabinet ministers or the look, I'm unemployed today, right? I become elected tomorrow, and then I'm Minister of Finance the next day. What knowledge do I have to run a department, run a large corporation, the largest corporation in the Bahamas, just because I was elected?
And you've never run anything before?
I mean, I understand what you're saying, right? What I'm saying, we need to seriously look at the system.
Phil?
Can I take it from a different approach? And, you know, I believe we've failed our politicians as a nation because we have allowed so much power to be within the hands, and maybe it's the system, and that was a good point relative to Republic. Maybe it's the old colonial system. Maybe it's the fact that that's just the way that it always used to be. Maybe it's our history, the culture. Mm-hmm. But this leadership challenge that we have always seems to revolve around the authority that lies within the political arena. And we can't seem to grab it back as a people so that, you know, I like to use the example of volcanoes. Volcanoes always erupt from the bottom, you know? Mm-hmm. And when they erupt and they push out to the top is the first thing to go, you know? So really, I think we have allowed as a people that authority to be taken away from us. We don't move in this country on anything of significance unless the you know, you hear people calling, well, you need to hear from the Prime Minister on this. What about my view?
Yes.
What about your view?
Yes. Okay.
And just playing off of that, I mean, I think we put our confidence in politicians in this country, but we don't, you know, we don't get that sort of return, that confidence placed in us as Bahamians. I mean, we're talking about the economy, and I think that's a big part of it. As our politicians, the first thing they do, they run off to Canada for consultants. They run elsewhere. They give incentives. They give incentives to foreigners, and they don't give them to the Bahamians. They will put the confidence in anybody but the electorate that put them there in the first place. And that's, you know, and so I think when I spoke a few days ago with Dr. Wisdom prior to coming on here, that there is, I sort of, to what Phil was saying, sort of this underlying you know, thing that you feel that's going to happen in this country, because this has been sort of going on for so long, this sort of status quo. There are those who benefit from the status quo, and that's the main reason why. There are those who benefit, and those who benefit are not going to allow there to be change, at least not easily.
Please. Again, I wanted to respond to your question of why.
Yeah, and Phil, before you answer that, I want you to, in terms of the why, you know, you're in the chamber, business owners, big and old, must often complain to you or talk to you about this. Again, so they talk but don't move. Why? Why is that happening?